When you find yourself scrolling through Instagram, have you ever thought about the extraordinary leadership it took to bring this app to fruition? At the helm of this global phenomenon was Marnie Levine, the Chief Operating Officer of Instagram from 2015 to 2018. Levine was known for her hands-on leadership style, often taking time to interact with employees at all levels. She championed openness and inclusivity, creating a dynamic work environment that encouraged innovation. It was under her watch that Instagram Stories and IGTV were launched, propelling Instagram's user growth and cementing its position as a leader in the social media space. Levine's leadership illustrates how creating an inclusive and encouraging environment can drive innovation and growth. On the flip side, let's consider the fast-paced world of Uber. Travis Kalanick, Uber's former CEO, was widely criticized for creating a toxic work culture. His aggressive leadership style and disregard for ethical considerations led to numerous scandals, including allegations of sexual harassment within the company. The impact was profound. Employee morale plummeted, leading to a talent drain, and the company's reputation suffered massively, impacting its market position. This cautionary tale shows how a leader's disregard for ethical conduct and employee welfare can have severe repercussions for the company. These examples underscore the power of leadership and its impact on employee well-being and overall company performance. They show us that leadership can be a force for good, fostering innovation and growth, as demonstrated by Marnie Levine at Instagram. Conversely, as shown by Travis Kalanick's tenure at Uber, poor leadership can create a toxic work environment and lead to significant company setbacks. We've talked about individual concepts, motivation, stress, and the power of work-life balance. We've also delved into team dynamics. Today, we're taking the next step and talking about leadership. In a nutshell, leadership is the art of guiding a group towards achieving shared goals. But before we delve deeper, let's understand a common confusion point: leadership versus management. Management is more of a role function. It's using the authority that comes with your position to maintain organizational compliance. Not all managers are leaders. Having authority doesn't always translate to being good at influencing others. And not all leaders are efficient managers. You may be great at inspiring people, but find it challenging when it comes to managing tasks that people might be less inclined to do. A successful organization thrives when there's a blend of both of these skill sets. Now, if we look back at the historical timeline of industrial and organizational psychology, our understanding of leadership has evolved significantly. In the early days, it was mostly a top-down affair, with the spotlight on how leaders could effectively guide their followers to accomplish tasks. Nowadays, the emphasis is more on building and managing relationships. Believe it or not, this has turned out to be a key ingredient in keeping employees satisfied and reducing turnover. Leaders today are not just supervisors, they're also facilitators. They ponder over questions like, how can I foster my team's growth? And how can I grow as a leader over time? This shift brings a new flavor to leadership, with a focus on coaching instead of merely instructing. Also gaining momentum in leadership today is the art of listening and providing constructive feedback. The modern leadership scenario is not just about telling, it's equally about listening. Let's envision a scenario. Imagine you've scored a summer internship at a tech company, and you've been entrusted with the leadership of a small project team. You're excited, but also a little nervous. After all, leadership isn't just about being the best coder on the team, there's much more to it. So what makes a leader effective? First, you need to bring your technical skills to the table. In your case, that's your coding prowess. But that's not enough to guarantee success. Just think about it. If one of your team members was the best coder around, would that automatically make them a great leader? Probably not. Leadership demands a mix of additional skills. Your ability to spot trends, troubleshoot problems, and think creatively will be equally as important. Let's not forget about your interpersonal skills, the ability to communicate, collaborate, and quite simply, get along with your team members. Power is another essential part of the equation, and power can manifest in many ways. First, there's coercive power, the capacity to impose negative consequences or punishments. Like if a team member consistently misses deadlines, you could discipline them. The second is expert power, being recognized for unique knowledge or abilities. Maybe you've mastered a complex coding language that others haven't. That's a form of power. 3 is information power, possessing exclusive information. Suppose you're the only one who knows the ins and outs of the new software your team is using. 4. Legitimate power, your formal authority or position. As project lead, you have power because of your assigned role. 5 is referent power. People feel a connection or identification with you. This could be due to your approachability or empathy. 6 is reward power, the ability to reward others. You could decide who presents the project at the final company-wide meeting. In addition to power, trust is also vital in leadership. And there are 3 types of trust that play a crucial role. 1 is deterrence-based trust. This is when trust stems from potential repercussions if trust is violated. It's like trusting a team member to complete their part of the project because they know that their performance review could suffer if they don't. 2 is knowledge-based trust, trusting someone based on their reliability. If a team member has always turned in top-notch work on time, you're likely to trust them to do so in the future. And the 3rd is identification-based trust. This arises from a shared sense of purpose and goals. You and your team are all striving for the successful completion of your project, and that builds trust. As a leader, wielding these resources effectively is a key to success. When studying leadership, researchers have attempted to answer questions like, what makes a leader emerge? What makes them effective? And most importantly, how can we nurture and develop strong leaders? The earliest theories of leadership were trait theories. These looked into what kind of individual is prone to step up and take on the mantle of leadership. If you've ever wondered why some of your classmates naturally take charge during a group project while others are more comfortable following, then you're thinking along the lines of trait theories. Then came the behavioral theories. These theories moved beyond just the person and started to delve into the specific behaviors and processes that make leaders effective. It's kind of like noticing not just who steps up to lead a group project, but what they actually do to steer the group towards success. A little later came the so-called situational and contingency theories. These theories broaden the perspective even further, viewing leadership as an interaction between the leader and their followers. They treat leadership more as a team or group dynamic, rather than just focusing on the leader themselves. It's like considering how a class group project leader adapts their strategies based on the specific strengths, weaknesses, and personalities of their team members. So today we're going to discuss some of the theories that have shaped our understanding of leadership over the years. We'll start with the early trait approaches, examining the theory that inherent attributes can distinguish leaders. Next, we'll transition to behavior-based approaches, which prioritized a leader's actions over their innate traits. We then consider situational contingency theories, which highlight the importance of context in leadership effectiveness. After that, we'll look at the contemporary theories that dominate the literature today, including the leader-member exchange theory, emphasizing the significance of leader-follower relationships, and the social identity approach, stressing group identity in effective leadership, the concept of charismatic leadership, and the balance between transactional and transformational strategies in the full-range leadership model. Finally, we'll connect theory to practice, exploring how these concepts have influenced real-world leadership development programs. The earliest take on leadership we'll look at is the trait approach. In short, this approach assumes that leaders are born, not made. It assumes that some people just have certain traits that just make them better leaders. Just like your height or eye color, these are believed to be unchanging. So we're all familiar with the conversation around gender in leadership. Have you noticed the stereotype that women tend to be more democratic, gathering everyone's opinions, while men are more autocratic, deciding on their own? Interestingly, the democratic style, commonly attributed to women, seems to be more favored by employees. Yet, despite this, we find fewer women in top leadership roles. Why is that? Here's where we can look to a fascinating meta-analysis from 2014. It states that men and women are generally seen as equally effective leaders, but there's an interesting catch. When leadership effectiveness is rated by others, women score higher than men. However, in self-ratings, men tend to rate themselves higher. So it seems women are perceived as effective leaders by others, but they might undervalue their own effectiveness. What about a leader's personality? A big meta-analysis from the early 2000s examined the correlation between the big 5 personality traits and leadership. It turns out that 3 of these traits, extroversion, openness to experience, and conscientiousness, are all tied to some degree with leadership emergence and effectiveness. In other words, our personalities do have an impact on whether we might step up as leaders. Let's critique this trait approach. Why can't we solely rely on trait approaches in understanding leadership? Suppose you're the tech wizard in your friend group, known for your speed, knowledge, and patience, all essential attributes for a leadership role in IT. However, if you were asked to host the next big university event, would those same traits assure your success as a dynamic MC? Probably not. This exemplifies the primary drawback of trait theories. They overlook the fact that different leadership situations often require different sets of traits. Also, the relationship between traits and leadership is kind of like asking which came first, the chicken or the egg. Do certain traits make people more likely to become leaders, or do these traits develop because a person has stepped into a leadership role? It's a tough question, and honestly, we don't have a clear-cut answer. It's also important to remember that traits are generally more linked to who steps up as a leader, that is, leadership emergence, rather than how effective they are in that role. For instance, having a talent for public speaking might mean you're more likely to run for a student union executive position, but it doesn't necessarily mean you'll be great at managing a budget or resolving conflicts. So the next big wave of leadership research was the behavioral theories of leadership. They break away from the idea that leaders are born, not made, and emphasize the actions, the deeds, the doing of leadership. Here's the exciting part. According to these theories, leadership skills can be learned. This perspective is a game changer because it means anyone can potentially step up and lead with the right training. It's not just about handpicking those naturally inclined towards leadership anymore. It's about empowering people to cultivate their leadership capabilities. Two significant early lines of research stand out that explored leadership from a behavioral standpoint. One was conducted at Ohio State University in the US. They boiled leadership behaviors down into two main categories: initiating structure and consideration. Initiating structure deals with task-focused activities, like carving out clear roles for oneself and team members. On the flip side, consideration is all about nurturing and valuing relationships, building trust, and caring about followers' feelings. Meanwhile, another group of researchers at the nearby University of Michigan were working on a similar track. They also differentiated between two leadership styles: employee-oriented and production-oriented. The former prioritizes interpersonal relationships and addresses team members' needs, akin to Ohio State's consideration. In contrast, the latter emphasizes tasks at hand, closely resembling initiating structure. So there's a neat symmetry between these two studies, both highlighting the dual importance of task-focused and people-focused in effective leadership. One outcome of these studies was this managerial grid, which measures where the leader falls on these two dimensions: concern for people and concern for production. Now let's look at another meta-analysis. In 2004, the same researcher who led the personality meta-analysis from a minute ago published another big meta-analysis, analyzing the impacts of the consideration and initiating structure leadership styles. As it turned out, both the consideration or employee-oriented style and the initiating structure or production-oriented style influenced how followers perceived their leader's effectiveness. It also influenced their own motivation and their satisfaction with the leader. So both styles have merit. However, the consideration style scored extra points. Overall, it had a more powerful impact on positive outcomes than the task-oriented style. Now, the behavioral perspective isn't without its critics. Some argue it misses out on the passion or the sheer charisma that effective leaders often bring to the table. The theories within the behavioral perspective say that if a leader sticks to a certain set of behaviors, they're going to excel. It's a neat idea, but it doesn't quite capture the spark that really lights up a room. Moreover, there isn't a universal right set of leadership behaviors. Just as we've seen with traits, the ideal leadership style can vary depending on the situation. It's about reading the room and adapting, kind of like knowing when to crack a joke to lighten the mood or when to sit back and listen. Different situations call for different leadership behaviors.